Welcome to the LEA Private Nonprofit Equitable Services Random Validation Training. I am Lenitra Guest, ESA PNP Ombudsman in the Federal Program Compliance Division. The PNP Random Validation for 2021 through 2022 will request documentation for one selected program requirement. However, a district must ensure it has documentation on file for all PNP program requirements. This presentation will share information regarding the LEA documented PNP Equitable Services amounts random validation and the documentation submission process. Documenting overall compliance for a program requirement may require several forms of documentation to be maintained locally and available upon request by TEA and/or an auditor. To ensure overall compliance with program requirements, LEAs should refer to the program guide and/or other program-related resources that reference the multiple forms of documentation required to be maintained locally. The documentation requested for submission during the random validation process may not include all forms of documentation that are required to be maintained locally. Please note that due to COVID-19, documentation for virtual meetings is an acceptable form of documentation. Given the increased use of virtual meeting environments, participant rosters that include the meeting title, meeting date, and stakeholder names and roles would be acceptable substitutes for the more traditional sign-in sheets. This eliminates the need of a participant signature. For the 2021-2022 school year, the PNP random validation is LEA's documented PNP Equitable Services amounts. LEA should review the 21-22 PNP Random Handbook for the LEA documented PNP Equitable Services amounts. The handbook provides the information regarding the selected PNP requirement, instructions for completing the submission packet, instructions for uploading random validation documentation, and a timeline for the PNP random validation process. In addition, the handbook shares the alignment among the ESA statutory citations, ESA program-specific provisions and assurances, and the compliance report. LEAs will complete applicable sections of the submission packet, include specifically identified relevant information, and follow the random validation handbook instructions to submit documents through the ESA Reports application on TEAL no later than January 14, 2022. The ESA Section 1117 provides a statutory requirement for Title I Part A Equitable Services amounts. The ESA Section 8501 and Code of Federal Regulations, Title 34, Section 299.7 provides the statutory requirements for Title VIII programs, which includes Title II Part A, Title III Part A, Title IV Part A, and Title IV Part B Equitable Services amounts. Program-specific provisions and assurances refer to the Title I Part A private nonprofit and Title VIII private nonprofit equitable services program requirements that may be found in the LEA Consolidated Federal Grant application on the pages listed on the slide. Program-specific provisions and assurances referring to the Title VIII PNP Equitable Services program requirements in sections 8501 through 8504 are found in the LEA Consolidated Federal Grant application. More specific information may be found by clicking the link of the Title VIII Part F, Subpart 1 Private Schools sections 8501 through 8504. The LEA Compliance Report, PNP Compliance Self-Check, states the LEA documented the PNP Equitable Services amounts, used and provided a detailed explanation of the Equitable Services amounts provided to PNP officials for all applicable participating programs. The LEA should submit specific documentation which provides evidence it shared applicable title program equitable services amounts with participating PNP school officials during consultation. Acceptable evidence would include documentation. LEAs inform the PNP school officials of fiscal requirements that could include equitable services amounts for one private school campus. A few examples of this documentation could include agendas, consultation meeting notes, LEA program summaries, a timeline of professional development travel and the PNP's purchase order request, a calendar of program services with equitable services amounts, or other documentation that meet this particular requirement. Or an LEA may submit documentation that the LEA shared calculated equitable services amount by program for one PNP school campus. For example, the LEA calculations by PNP campus and program level, or the calculation formulas per PNP campus, or the third option is for an LEA to provide written district policy and procedures and documentation that provided verification or tracked LEA PNP purchases that include equitable service amounts for one private school campus. Again, the LEA should only submit documentation for one participating private nonprofit school campus in order to show the evidence that the LEA documented equitable services amounts for the PNP school officials during consultation. Documentation should include equitable services amounts for the ESA title programs the one participating private nonprofit school campus received or will receive, and that it has been shared with them during consultation. The PNP random validation timeline starts with the emailed initial notification to LEAs which have been selected for this particular random validation on December 1, 2021. The deadline for LEAs to upload documentation to meet this requirement on ESA reports will be January 14, 2022. During the time of preparation and submission, the ESC will be available to provide technical assistance to the LEA. If the LEA receives notification that improvement has been needed, the ESC will provide additional support and the LEA must upload resubmitted documents on September 30th, 2022. Thank you for attending today's session. If you have further questions or need additional technical assistance, please email isasupport@tea.texas.gov. Thank you and have a wonderful day.